Hello again and welcome back. I'm so glad you chose to be here once again. Just like last time, I want you to find a comfortable spot, maybe take a deep breath, and just give yourself credit for showing up. This work isn't easy, but it's the most important work we can do. Many people believe that human nature is fixed, that you can't just change who you are overnight. They say that asking someone to let go of their ego, their sense of self, is the hardest task imaginable. But what if it wasn't hard at all? What if the real issue is that the ego, this thing we try so hard to protect and yet also want to give up, doesn't really exist in the way we think it does? Of course, if you use your ego to fight your ego, you'll be stuck in a battle that never ends. The truth is, this whole experience of life is a kind of game, a grand performance. The problem is that you've forgotten that you're playing. All the stress, the constant rushing, the deep-seated fears, the frustrations, and that nagging feeling that you're always behind. That something is fundamentally missing or wrong with you. None of this is as solid and real as it appears. The most unsettling and powerful idea is that on some profound level of your being, you actually agreed to be here. You chose this particular experience. You chose to know what it feels like to be afraid, to feel pain, to experience loneliness, and to suffer loss. As strange as that might sound right now, this is the core of what the philosopher Alan Watts suggested to us. He often described life as a magnificent show, a play where you are not just a member of the audience, but also one of the main actors. The central problem is that you have forgotten this simple fact. You became so engrossed and lost in the character you were playing that you started to believe the character is all you are. You forgot that suffering is just part of the story's plot, and that chaos is merely a part of the stage's scenery. Because of this forgetting, you live as if every moment is final and absolute, as if every loss is the end of the world, and as if every personal crisis is a genuine collapse of your life, rather than just another scene in the play. What if the fear that holds you back and paralyzes you isn't the enemy you think it is? What if the real mistake isn't feeling these difficult emotions, but constantly fighting against them? Alan Watts talked about a kind of deep, inner courage, a courage to look pain directly in the eye and continue moving forward. This isn't about being numb or insensitive. It's about knowing, deep in your bones, that all of this is a game. It's not a silly, meaningless game where nothing matters, but a profound, sacred game where every experience, even suffering, has a purpose and adds to the richness of it all. Think about how many times you've been caught in a loop of worry. Your mind feels like it's peeling an onion that never ends. As soon as you peel back one layer of anxiety, another one is waiting right underneath. You worry about your finances, then your health, then your future, then what other people think, and the list goes on. Deep down, there's a belief that if you stop worrying, you'll become irresponsible or naive. But what Watts pointed out is that the exact opposite is true. Constant worrying isn't a sign that you're aware and in control. It's a sign that you're imprisoned. You are trapped in a game, but you don't realize you're a player. You're simply reacting to everything, fighting and struggling against the events of your life because you've forgotten that you chose to be here in the first place. The key to waking up from this trance isn't to fight harder against it. The key is simply to remember. Remember that it's all a grand play. Remember that even the most intense fear is just a part of the script you are performing. When you can truly and deeply accept this, something inside you begins to shift. The pain might still visit, but it no longer has the power to dominate you. Fear might still show up, but it doesn't get to define who you are. For the very first time, you can begin to play your part with awareness. This is the invitation, not to adopt a new set of beliefs, but to remember a truth that has always been there, hidden behind all the layers of who you think you are. You don't have to win the game. You just need to wake up inside of it. Imagine your entire life is happening on a giant stage, and the most fascinating part is that you were part of the creative team. You helped write the script, you chose the backdrop, and then you enthusiastically jumped into your role, completely forgetting that it was all a performance you helped create. Alan Watts viewed our existence in this way, as a cosmic drama. It's a performance where the universe itself pretends to forget that it is the one source of everything, just so it can have the adventure of rediscovering itself over and over again. You, me, and every person we know are all different expressions of this universal game, a sort of divine divine game of hide and seek. But what does this mean for your everyday life? It means that every single situation you encounter, from the smallest annoyance like traffic to the most profound experiences of grief, are all scenes that have been placed before you. They are not there to punish you or to test your worth. They are there so that you can feel. They are there so you can feel the full spectrum of existence. Fear, pain, joy, love, longing, and frustration. It's an opportunity to feel everything with great intensity. It's similar to deciding to watch a sad movie. You know it will likely make you cry, or choosing a scary movie, knowing it will make you jump. You seek out these experiences because, on a deeper level, you are always aware that it's just a film. It is precisely this awareness about life that most of us have lost. Watts explained that life requires contrast to be meaningful. Without the experience of darkness, we would never truly appreciate the light. Without knowing suffering, joy would feel bland and empty. This is why we choose, on some level, to forget. We allow ourselves to dive headfirst into the game, forgetting the hows and whys, and simply react to events as if they are permanent and final, as if the stage we are on is a prison cell rather than a playground. This is the reason so many people live in a state of constant panic, desperately trying to control every outcome and protect themselves from things that were never a real threat to their true selves. They have forgotten that fear, pain, and loss are not random accidents, but essential parts of the performance. When you begin to understand this, not just as an interesting idea, but as a truth that you feel deep within your soul, you stop running. You start to watch the spectacle of your own life unfold, and for the first time, instead of fighting against the storm, you simply allow yourself to feel the rain on your skin. However, waking up to this reality doesn't happen without a fight. The ego, which is the character you've been playing every single day, will struggle to maintain the illusion. It thrives on control, certainty, and protection. The ego is terrified of surrender. It is terrified of accepting that it is not truly in command of life. And it's right at this point that Alan Watts offers his most radical invitation: to cultivate a new kind of courage. This isn't the physical courage of a soldier or the bravery to face an external enemy. It's something much deeper. It is the courage to stop resisting your own experience. There is a type of bravery that most people never get to know, not because it's out of reach, but because it asks for an internal shift that goes against everything we've been taught about ourselves and the world. This is the courage to face your own inner demons without flinching. It means being able to look at your fear, your sadness, and your loneliness, and not immediately run away. It means having the strength to stay present, to feel what you are feeling. True courage isn't the lack of fear, it's the conscious choice not to fight against fear when it arrives. Watts taught that when we allow fear to exist within us, without rejecting it or trying to push it down, it loses its grip on us. This is the complete opposite of what society teaches. From a very young age, we are taught to suppress our difficult feelings, to avoid them, to distract ourselves. Feeling anxious? Watch TV or scroll through your phone. Feeling afraid? Keep yourself busy with work. But every act of escape only strengthens the very thing we are trying to run from. This deeper courage begins the moment you let go of the idea that you need to fix how you feel. It starts when you stop blaming yourself for being afraid, for feeling weak, or for not having everything under control. It's when you can look at an emotion as a natural event, like feeling the warmth of a fire or the chill of a winter morning. It's not something you are actively doing. It is something that is happening through you. The more you try to resist it, the stronger the fear becomes. The more you try to control it, the more powerless you end up feeling. You might think, but I'm not a warrior. I get scared. I freeze up. I want to run. That's perfectly fine. Watts would say that you don't have to try to not be afraid. You just have to stop being afraid of the fact that you are feeling fear. That is the point where the cycle starts to break. When you can accept fear as just another part of the show, another step in the dance, it changes. It becomes energy. It becomes movement. It becomes life. But if fighting our fear is what traps us, what keeps us stuck in this loop of anxiety and worry, this is where we uncover the mind's endless layers of anxiety, the next level of the illusion that holds us captive. The anxious mind is like an onion with an infinite number of layers. You think you've solved one problem by peeling away a layer, but almost immediately another one appears. You peel that one off, and yet another one is there. You can spend your whole life this way, constantly in a state of emergency, with the feeling that real peace is always just around the corner, on the other side of the next worry. But the brutally honest truth that Alan Watts shares is that this onion has no center. The problem isn't the layers of worry, it's the way you've been taught to handle your fear. You worry about your job, about having enough money, about your health, and about what the future holds. Even when everything is going well, a part of you remains on edge, as if you're not allowed to fully relax. The reason for this is that you've learned to identify yourself with the act of worrying. At some point, you were conditioned to believe that worrying is a sign of being in control, a badge of responsibility, and a smart way to prepare for future pain. But this is a complete illusion. Watts said that the habit of worry is like an emotional addiction. It's a way for the mind to stay busy so that it doesn't have to face the silence, the emptiness, because in that silence, when there are no immediate problems to solve, an uncomfortable question floats to the surface. If I have nothing to worry about, then who am I? Most people do not know how to live without that constant background tension of needing to fix something. They feel guilty when they rest, when they stop, when they simply exist. The most ironic part of all this is that continuous worry solves nothing. It only warps your perception of reality, makes small problems look like giant monsters, and traps you in a never-ending cycle of anxiety. You start to live as if danger is always lurking around the corner, even when you are perfectly safe. As soon as one perceived threat disappears, your mind immediately hunts for another one. The onion just keeps growing, and the more you stare at it, the more it fills your entire view of the world. A small doubt can spiral into a full-blown panic. Life becomes an emotional minefield. But there is a way out of this. Watts invites us to completely change our relationship with fear and anxiety. He suggests that we swap our worrying for a sense of wonder, that instead of resisting what is, we begin to simply observe it. Instead of fighting against the uncertainty of life, we can begin to be amazed by it. Because it is only when you finally let go of the desperate need for control that the true meaning of existence begins to shine through. This is the turning point of the transformation, shifting your focus from resistance to admiration, and completely changing the way you see the world. The biggest illusion that keeps us trapped by anxiety is the idea that worrying is a sign of being a responsible person. Think about how many times you've thought that if you let your guard down and stop worrying, something terrible is bound to happen, as if your constant tension is a magic shield protecting you from disaster. Alan Watts completely dismantles this deep-seated belief and offers something so simple and revolutionary in its place that very few people have the courage to truly embrace it. Life does not need to be controlled. It needs to be observed with a sense of wonder. Watts suggests that instead of fighting our emotions, we should open up to them with the same sense of awe we have when we admire a powerful storm. When you see lightning flash across the sky, you don't try to stop it. You watch it, you marvel at it, you feel the power of that raw, untamed energy, and you surrender to the beauty of something that is completely beyond your control. In the very same way, he invites us to look at our own emotions, our fear, our sadness, our anger, with eyes of admiration, not resistance. This is a profound rewiring of the mind, because your entire life, you've been trained to do the opposite. You've been taught to resist, to build emotional walls, and to protect yourself from the unpredictable nature of life, by fighting internal battles that can never truly be won. But existence, as Watts teaches, is not something to be conquered. It's something to be lived, with all of its ups and downs, its contradictions, and its beautiful imperfections. When you start to see your worry for what it truly is, a misdirection of your attention and an attachment to the illusion of control, something begins to change. Your mind starts to open up to the sheer wonder of being alive, to the mystery of breathing, feeling, and simply existing. Suddenly, what once seemed like a threat begins to feel like an invitation. Fear is no longer an enemy that must be defeated, but a natural phenomenon to be witnessed. Sadness is no longer a mistake to be corrected, but another color in the rich palette of the human experience. However, this transformation isn't just an intellectual exercise. It's not an idea you can simply understand and be done with. It has to be embodied. You have to feel it in your body and in your heart. You have to practice surrendering to what you cannot control. You have to allow life to happen through you, without trying to force it to fit your fears. This practice begins at the most fundamental level, in the way you feel your own emotions. Because, as Watts also reminds us, emotions like fear are no different from the heat we feel when we get close to a fire. They are natural, spontaneous responses. They are not the problem. The problem is our attempt to suppress them, to control them, and to mold them into an idealized image of how we think we should be. Fear is like the heat from a flame. It's not something you choose to feel, just as you don't choose to feel warm when you stand near a campfire. It's an automatic, instinctive, and natural response. But unlike the sensation of heat, which we generally accept as a simple bodily reaction, we resist fear. We try to smother it, hide from it, and ignore it. We've taught ourselves to believe that feeling fear is a sign of weakness, a flaw in our character, and that we should be able to control our emotions as if they were pieces on a chessboard. Alan Watts takes this illusion apart with stunning clarity. He explains that it is not fear itself that destroys us. It is our resistance to fear. It's the refusal to allow the emotion to happen that drags us down into chronic anxiety, guilt, and despair. When you feel fear and immediately try to push it down, it doesn't just vanish. It transforms into something bigger, heavier, and more paralyzing. Repressed fear becomes chronic worry. It becomes panic attacks, and it becomes a quiet, underlying desperation. The real wisdom lies in recognizing that fear is not your enemy. It is simply a natural response to the vast and unpredictable nature of life. The unknown generates fear, and uncertainty generates fear. That is perfectly okay. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. The mistake is believing that you need to get rid of it in order to be free. True freedom arrives the moment you allow fear to exist within you, just as you allow heat to exist in your body. You do this without trying to extinguish it, without trying to change it, and most importantly, without identifying with it. Imagine you are sitting in front of a warm campfire. You feel the heat on your face. You don't fight against the heat. You don't panic because the fire is hot. You simply feel it. Perhaps adjust your distance if it gets too intense, and you continue on. It should be the exact same with fear. It arises, you feel it, you observe it. You don't need to immediately react. You don't need to interpret it or build elaborate stories about what this feeling says about you as a person. This kind of deep, unconditional acceptance transforms fear from something that feels oppressive into something that simply is. You don't need to be a hero. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You just need to be there, aware, feeling and embracing the human experience in its totality. And here is the most important point. Every single time you suppress an emotion, you break yourself into fragments. You create internal zones of tension that drain your vital energy. But when you allow an emotion to flow, when you feel it without being afraid of it, you begin to reintegrate. You become more whole. You reclaim the parts of yourself that were hidden behind the armor of resistance. Watts shows us that this is true alchemy, transforming fear into presence, pain into inner strength, and vulnerability into an awakened consciousness. This journey isn't about achieving perfection, but about embracing your true self. It's about finding your way back home to who you are, stepping out of any limitations, and finally recognizing the warmth and light of your own inherent worth. You deserve this. You always have. Thanks for watching. If this resonated, please like this video and subscribe to stay updated. I look forward to continuing this journey with you. Until next time, take care and be present.